What up, you guys? We are here for our Monday's anchor message. I took a night off from work. I was so tired, just tired little baby. And I went on a long walk, and then I went to the grocery store so that on my next 2 days off, maybe I don't have a lot of errands. So, yay. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do our video a little early, thank goodness, and get up early and go vote tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. It's interesting. Most of my life I have been on pins and needles through the election. And this year I've come to a level of either radical acceptance that it is what it is and we'll survive as we always do. And we always think that we're on the edge of oblivion every time. And that if we don't have the candidate that we want, that it's all going to hell in a handbasket. And what I've come to realize is that, like, maybe it's either radical acceptance or maybe I'm just numb to the carnage. But it just seems like no matter what, throughout my life, it's always felt like we were living in hell in a handbasket. And the economy has always been on the brink. And we've unfortunately always been at war. And people have always been at each other's throats. And we just seem to carry on anyway and continuum. So hopefully mankind can continue to awaken and elevate and evolve. But I think that if you're terrified of the results tomorrow, just zoom out and think about the hysteria that's been around so many of our elections. And there's never been a perfect 4 years for anybody in office. And I don't think it's only been rare that we've had candidates that we've been like super, super thrilled about, which I miss the Obama days. I really liked him. I thought he was a great president. But yeah, we'll see how it goes, and we'll survive and we'll carry on. And no matter who is there, it always seems to be kind of the same. So yeah, we're gonna make it. Don't be scared, because I remember there have been times where, like, I remember elections, waking up, finding out the results when they were all tallied and just feeling devastated and hopeless and despair. Like, we were really in for some dark times. We made it through, and I think too that Pluto's transit through Capricorn had really purged so much of the volume of the hidden darkness and toxicity and destruction and corruption, that it's not like there's going to be big new surprises for us, I don't think. Every major category of human relation has been touched, it feels like, over the last 16 years to illuminate us to imbalance and injustice and in, lack of humanity in those areas. So hopefully we're leveling out a little bit with Pluto going into Aquarius, right? It's a new age. It's an innovative era of open-mindedness and future thinking, forward thinking, humanitarianism and unity mindedness. So, things could be going in a really great direction, even if we don't have the results that we're excited about in the election, And it's just so many different factors play into catalyzing a zeitgeist and a movement of humanity. It's not always when we get what we want. Sometimes it does come through seeing the contrast of what we want things to be like, so that we can see the remaining cracks in the foundations, so we can build a future that's sustainable. But we can't do that if we're building over the cracks. We have to see those cracks first and repair and fill those in. So we can't obliterate darkness and evil, and we can't eradicate it. But what we can do, and what we're charged with and we're expected to do, is seek it out so that we can fix and repair and heal and illuminate and elevate and transmute that darkness. So we'll see how things play out. But as far as our weekly spiritual assignments in Soul School, we've got the Mother from the Wild Unknown archetype, followed by the Ocean, which reminds me of symbiotic fluid. Like this, the Mother card talks about how we are all, our first heartbeat for all of us is in the warm waters of the womb. And the ocean, the salt water of the ocean, represents the ambionic waters of Mother Earth and the divine feminine, and where we came from as humankind, right? And even just the material reality, it was like God separated the firmament and the land from the water, right? We separated from the water in order to become form, right? So I think that's so interesting. We are formed from the waters. And then we've got the Sustainer here. And we had the Sustainer last week, interestingly enough. And I got a very different message from it this time. Last week, it was all about connecting to the Creator and seeing the Creator as the Sustainer. But in this particular week, this is more, it's a macro look into our own tendencies and expression of the Sustainer rather than the micro rather than the macro. So underneath the Mother card, we've got 7 of Pentacles. Underneath the Ocean, we've got the King of Pentacles. And underneath the Sustainer, we have got the 5 of Wands. So the Mother card is interesting because the Mother is the nurturer and the protector and the teacher and the giver of life. But the struggle with the Mother is that the Mother loves so much and cares so much for her young and invests so much in them that the Mother can also be fearful and smothering and clinging and not want the chicks to leave the nest in a way, or want to hover and make sure that everything is safe and perfect and just so, right? And maybe depending on the Mother that you're dealing with, whether it's the light Mother or the dark Mother might frighten the children and give them the dark consequences of, if you do this, or else, or, if you go ahead and do that, but this is probably what will happen, so there's this, sometimes we have these mother wounds that are echoes of that voice of the Mother that makes us feel guilty. And so we don't necessarily take the risks that we want to, or trust ourselves, or we don't want to leave too far from the nest for feelings of guilt or shame. Maybe there are parts of ourselves that we repressed because we felt guilt or shame, because in the Mother's good intentions, she wanted to prepare us to be, a viable option out when we were presented to society as, looking for our life partners and mates, right? So maybe the Mother in their intention tries to refine us and our looks and our demeanor, and depending on how your mother's delivery was, maybe you felt body shamed or felt like you had to be quiet, pretty, nice, go along to get along, and hide parts of yourself that were deemed as too much, or difficult, or a lot of work, right? Or maybe you were told, oh, you're not enough hard work, right? You need to be more hard to get, or whatever. And so maybe you were told what to do or what you should do, or like you're doing the wrong thing, but maybe you weren't guided as to how to be, or you weren't guided very well as far as like how to mature and develop as a person, right? And that wasn't like anyone's mother's fault. It's just that everyone's mothers are very young when they start out. And, it's only been in recent years that we've had so much access to pop psychology and personal development and more spirituality, and so we haven't really thought about the way that we relate. And so the parents that were, coming from earlier generations, many of them were rough around the edges in the way that they approached like communicating with their children. So they didn't know a lot about childhood psychology, or, how easy it was to maybe traumatize a child or implant like subconscious beliefs that would affect them for the rest of their lives. We're more aware of that now, so we can be more conscious, but we didn't know that until recent years. And so many of us spend a lot of our adulthood going through these cycles or these patterns, and we're not sure why we keep looping around and around and around. And what we don't realize is that these are early childhood wounds. We have a wounded inner child, and we might even have lingering post-traumatic stress syndrome from childhood that sends us into these loops, right? And so they range from being loops that materialize in our nervous system and send us into low-level trauma responses. They're emotional patterns. They're unconscious behaviors that we default into, and they are unconscious beliefs that maybe our personality thinks it's serving as a defense mechanism that's really thwarting us and thwarting our potential, right? So even if our mother is very encouraging of us and, is encouraging of our potential, maybe there is lingering effects from unintended mother wounds that are serving to play out that smothering and clinging mother energy that prevents the baby from taking risks and from leaping out of the nest and spreading those wings. So now, having seen those things and found those things within us, we've been able to correct those. We've been able to repair our relationship with our mother and have more forgiveness and compassion for our mother, because we've been able to release the hard feelings and the inner conflict and the resentment that resulted from these mother wounds and the enmeshment that we sort of carried because of these relational paradigms, right? So maybe we felt like we had to people please and we abandoned ourselves, or maybe we overgave, or maybe we felt like we betrayed ourselves because of feeling like enmeshed, and we had to like make sure everybody else was happy and comfortable, and we did what we were supposed to, and we were obedient, we were good, we honored the father and mother, and maybe we didn't understand that fully about what that meant. And so we did, a lot. I know so many people out there followed career paths and followed life paths because that's what they thought was expected of them by their family, but that was never something that was really authentic to them, and it wasn't even something that they wanted. And so it's been this facade or this mask they put on and they've carried, but they haven't been fulfilled and they haven't been in joy. And so now I think we're all letting go of those false selves, and with that we're able to also like put down that resentment. And that is an incredible thing to do, because resentment is a very heavy emotion and it's very low vibrational. It's very toxic. And so what it does is it brings us down emotionally and mentally, and it closes our vessel and it causes us to contract so we can't receive the blessings. And because it's so low vibrationally, like we break affinity with the light of the Creator. We're no longer sharing likeness with the Creator. So we're not in resonance with the Creator. So we separate from the Creator cutting us off from our blessings. So being able to release that resentment and forgive is very lightening, and it's becoming it's increasing our magnetism. So here we find ourselves at 7 of Pentacles, where we've put in so much hard work, and we've put in so much effort and invested so much in material efforts in our goals and our dreams, but also within ourselves, towards self-love and self-healing and personal development and personal, self-discovery. And so we've planted seeds and we've been growing orchards, but orchards, those trees take years to mature to the point where they can bear fruit. And so sometimes it feels like, oh, am I ever going to really be able to enjoy the fruits of my labor? And so now we're at a point in the process where our orchard has matured and our trees are grown and they're beautiful. And now we're waiting for that season to come where they finally bear the fruit. And so we are, not in the first early phase of development, right? We've got a couple of phases underneath our belt at this point. And so we're very close to being in the having of it, right? In the fulfillment of the manifestation. And so now what we have this moment in time to do is to reflect and evaluate the results that we have gotten so far and the lessons that we've learned and what life has been teaching us over this cycle, this karmic cycle over the last 16 years. And we're really preserving that wisdom, but we're evaluating where we've been and where we've come from. And then we're also kind of planning and strategizing about what's next and what are the next steps and how to get there. At the same time, we are getting really grounded, and we are grounding that wisdom and discernment into our current being. And so we've been trying to become more like our higher selves, right? And so we're discovering, we've already delved into that ocean, right? That depths, those dark, murky waters within, to find those shadowy aspects, to find the undeveloped or distorted parts of ourselves and bring those into resolution. And so we can't stay in the depths forever, right? The salt water really does, it dissolves like the layers of that ego that weren't really us. But we can't stay in that water forever. We have to come out. We can go back in, but we have, it's these rhythms, right? So now we've been doing the work, and now it's about coming out onto dry land here, the King of Pentacles, and getting grounded, and now really like solidifying that wisdom and that experience and that discernment and embodying that and putting these things into practice. And so now it's about getting out into the light of day and moving about our day in a way that would reflect how our higher self would go through our day. So that way, tick by tick, little by little, we're like aligning with that higher destiny. And so now is the time for simple implementation as we finish out the year. This is like where we get to practice doing the little infancy things, right? During a baby's first year, they're just learning, their reflexes are coming online, and they're learning how to use their hands, and they're learning, oh my gosh, I can see this is my face, this is my reflection. They're just like learning those basic things, like becoming aware of the self. And then they learn how to eat and, how to identify when they're hungry and when they need to go boom boom, when they want to go sleep, and they start learning to communicate these things. And so then, babies start learning how to crawl and how to take steps. And so right now we're in that infancy stage for the next couple of months while we're finishing the year, while Pluto starts stationing into Aquarius. There's so many planets going into different signs. It's starting in January and going into the year, so that it's like, okay, right now we can just take a breath and we can reflect and we can recalibrate and like get our bearings and gather ourselves and think about our life going forward and how we want to co-create with divine and how we want to make choices now that reflect what we love and what lights us up and what's going to bring us joy and where our soul is tugging us to, not where we've been obligated and having to and supposed to and should and all of that. And so now we're coming up with practical plans and practical actions and practical behaviors and expressions of that. And so it could start with like, simple things like how do you get up? What time are you getting up? What's your morning routine? Do you have a spiritual routine in the morning? Do you have a mental health routine in the morning to get your day set in the right direction? Then when is your optimal, creative productive times, right? When are you the most on? And you can structure your day around that, right? Or is your higher self on top of the laundry and keeping your environment clean and decluttered and clear? Does your higher self take care of their health and their hygiene and all of that? So you're wanting to show up for those basic things. So just get your routines tightened up throughout the end of the year. Enjoy holiday time with friends, right? Enjoy yourself and think and reflect and be present. And then next year, when we're starting the year, it's like you're already going to have these new routines in place, and you're going to be renewed and rested and re-inspired and reinvigorated to go forward and really dig into those goals. But right now, it's just about wrapping things up. And it's not like you have to put things on pause. You can keep doing what you're doing, but you don't feel like you have to go out, rush out and start big new projects and take the world by storm and build Rome in a day. Because I think that right now we're really integrating, and we've gone through so much growth that all of it is sort of processing right now. And like, say you're single and you're really ready for a relationship and you can feel one coming soon, give it a few weeks, because in a few weeks from now, you might be so different as a person that this might feel lifetimes away, and that the person you might have entertained today may not even interest you in several weeks from now. Or you might be in such a solid vibration several weeks from now that you'll be attracting a whole nother caliber of types of people that you maybe always wanted to meet, right? So things like that. So let yourself recalibrate before you start really, feeling itchy to get out there. If you have opportunities showing up, great, but don't feel angsty and anxious to rush that process, because the right things are coming. So last but not least, the sustainer here. Now, the sustainer in the booklet talks about like the archetypal figure that is the person who gets in there and does the dirty work day in and day out. This is the mundane. This is the simple things. This is the chopping wood, carrying water, cleaning the house, cooking. This is the little nurturing steps that sustain life, paying bills, all of that, right? Just like the kind of vibe, we want to chip away at these beautiful, simple tasks for the rest of the year. But all of the sustainer energy, this is a person who can embrace that sort of behind the scenes work, that quiet effort that's never really done, but that daily devotion of showing up and doing these things that create a beautiful life, right? There's this woman that I love watching on Instagram Reels. Her name is Sheshma, and her account's called Sheshma Mills. But she is a rural Iranian woman who lives in a traditional farm home in Iran, and she cooks in her fireplace, out of her fireplace, and sits on the floor and has her awesome chopping blocks and everything that she uses sitting on the floor. And she just chops these beautiful herbs and these spices, and I love watching her cook. But she sits there every day and she makes these beautiful, elaborate, traditional Middle Eastern meals, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. And her life's so simple. The family has maybe one room in that house, maybe a couple, very tiny place that they live. and their family all sits around this one area in this living room, and they eat together, and it's quiet, and they're happy, and this family just has so much love between them. But it's just like these nice, simple, beautiful things that make up such a nurturing and beautiful existence, that I watch it and I just dream, and it makes me feel nurtured just watching, the meals that she makes and the pride she takes in those, right? So that's the beautiful aspect of the sustainer, right? Something that you chip away at bit by bit by bit, and it's ongoing. Kind of like if you had a YouTube channel, right? You have to make a daily video, or some people just do one a week, but I'm not sure if you can break the algorithm doing, that anymore. But it's a daily devotion, and there's not like a finish line. You don't complete the project. Or like having like a late night show, right? Those late night hosts, they show up every day. They chip away. There's no end game. There's no finish line. There's no season 1, season 2. It's just day in and day out, right? So the sustainers happy in their devotion, but sometimes they can feel that the world is a bit thankless, and they don't really have a lot of praise or appreciation for the way that they contribute. And so sometimes that can lead to resentment, like what we were talking about. So stop yourself and check yourself before you get to the point where you're over giving and you're over nurturing to the point of resentment. There's also a concept in Hebrew Kabbalah called bread of shame. And so what that is that if you overgive to someone and they're in a passive state of desire, it's like they're like, well, I'll take it, but I didn't go after this myself. I didn't make an effort to try to make this happen, and it's just offered to me. Then they're kind of like, yeah, okay, sure. But then like if it just like you just keep getting more and more and more that you didn't ask for and you didn't earn, then it builds up resentment. Then you start getting an aversion to the giver, and you're like, I don't deserve this. This is like more than this is necessary. Like there's something weird about this. Is there strings attached? Like feels like you are like taking from me in some way by over giving. It's like when parents over spoil their kids, and the kids don't learn the value of earning or having responsibility. Right? And they get like a resentment towards their parents and a sense of entitlement. So then you get these spoiled kids who seem like they hate their parents, and their parents are like giving them everything, and they've lost their total like authority in the house, and it's just like everything's out of balance. That's bread of shame. Right? Bread of shame can be like someone who wins the lottery and is not prepared to manage the money, and then the money destroys them, and they go get on drugs, and now they're hooking up with prostitutes, and they lose all the money, and it brought out the worst in them because they hadn't prepared themselves for how money would affect them, or they hadn't developed themselves to be strong enough or stable enough to handle that kind of change in their energy and the light that they have available to them. And so then they don't feel like they deserve it, and they squander, right? They squander it away. So we're coming to terms with that. And so that gives you maybe like people who feel there are certain people who are really, really nice, and they have trouble saying no because I don't want to say no. I felt bad. Like I want to be nice. I want to do the kind thing. I want to be nice. But it's usually those people that end up being like resentful, right? Because they overgive and they don't realize that other people are receiving, but they're not necessarily they're not returning that same energy of giving. And so it builds up this resentment, right? And so it's better to be able to like say no when you need to, or be able to draw the line, when it's finished, without overdoing it or over giving. And so if you're that person that's like, oh, I felt bad, I just wanted to be nice, think about the bread of shame. Think about, oh, if I continue to overgive to this person, even though I feel nice in the moment, and even though they might be making me feel guilty and like I have to say yes, in the end, they're not going to respect me when I overgive to them, because they're going to lose respect for me and actually resent me for overgiving, for being overly nice. And then they're going to feel worse for it and project it on outward, right? It's a crazy crazy dynamic there, but that's real, and that's so true every time. So the sustainer is accompanied here with the Five of Wands, right? So Five of Wands is when there's like this inner conflict or this inner conflicting desire, or you're up against all these people that have agendas and they want you for different things and they want you to do different things, and they all have their agenda and desire. And it's like, here this woman is sitting here and her skirt is a chessboard, and all these people are coming at her and they all want something from her, and they all want her to, like, I want you to make my decision, vote my way, right? Come spend your energy and time doing this, not that. So they all want something from her, and they all have an agenda, and they all have a project, and they all have something on her plate. But she's like, how am I maneuvering this? Like, well, I want to make my own choice. And so it's like learning how to navigate conflicting agendas and inner conflicting desires with the self as well, and being able to, be strategic, and have healthy boundaries and be able to communicate those. And so some of it too is, the more we're aware of those inner conflicting desires that have been causing resistance from our inner world, now it's like we're starting to see how, like, the opponent can use outer influences to try to sort of divert our attention or our energies away from our, like, soul's goal as well. So we're learning how to identify that and saying, no, I'm moving these distractions, I'm prioritizing, I'm focused, I know how to overcome my inner limiting beliefs and fears and my inner conflicting desires, and move beyond that strategically and dispassionately with a level head. All right, you guys, this is all for tonight. Tomorrow we will be back for our weekly manifestation oracle message. Ciao. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it, then please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications to be notified of when I drop content. Like the videos, comment, share them. Anything that you do helps these messages get out to other people who need them. So you watching a video and taking an action on it actually makes a positive difference in someone else's life.